Claire.
Hi, Meg. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right. I might be coughing a little bit because I got a cold, but it's fine. It's totally cool.
Where's your masking, Claire? So rude. Zooming with.
I know. I figured you would miss my my smile.
I know. I'm sorry you're not feeling well.
Oh, it's much better already than a few days back. I have volume on now, which used to not be the case. So it's cool. It's just a little cough, a little cold. It's winter time.
I really dodged a bullet this week because I was supposed to see one of my friends who's a teacher, and I did not sleep that great the night before, and I had so much work to do that I messaged her that day being like, I don't think I'm going to make it. Can we hang out tomorrow instead? It's a much better day for me. And we agreed to meet. And then anyway, she messaged me that day saying she felt sick and had tested positive for COVID. So if I had seen her the day before, I could be potentially sick right now. So I really got lucky. I was like, wow, flu season, the winter, it's all here. I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not want to be in lockdown again for Christmas, which is what I did.
I know.
Last year I was in total isolation.
That's no fun.
I know. I don't want to be in Christmas jail again.
Yeah, Christmas jail. Yeah, no, that's not fun. And I have a big family thing coming up on Sunday. So we're really doing all the things to try to heal our body. So like Sunday was like when I got really hit hard on the head. Went to the doctor to get all the little prescriptions and the cough syrup and all the things and whatever. And then like horizontal all day to make sure that the body rests as much as possible. Then being super kind to myself and like being like, can I do that later? Then it will be later. Can I give that responsibility to someone else? And I will give that responsibility to someone else. Trying to do all the things that aren't always easy because I don't like asking for help. But I want to be there on Sunday for the family thing because it's like my whole family on my mom's side is like doing a big reunion. And I asked the doctor and she was like, well, basically, if you're not coughing anymore, you won't be contagious. So I was like, gotcha. Mission no cough by Sunday. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. I hope you make it though. I hope you get there.
Me too. I mean, she did say that if I wanted to go and I was still coughing a bit, I could go with a mask and sort of like have like a reasonable distance with people and yada yada, but it's just not the same. And of course, you know, that is an option, but I don't want to take a risk. I am seeing like my grandma and like older humans, and I'm just not ready to put other people at risk. So it's going to be fine. I will be cough-free by Sunday.
You have a few days left.
I do. And I feel like a million times better than I did on Sunday. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Mission family reunion.
Exactly. So that's the boring intro to today's video.
Talk about getting sick and the cold season. Woohoo.
I mean,
hey, it's life.
It is life. And we're friends. So this is what friends talk about. I mean, let's be real. Sometimes we do talk about extra exciting stuff, but but this is part of the stuff that friends talk about. The boring parts of life are the parts that are real and make us human. And when we're honest, which I didn't used to be honest with friends, not because I'm mean, but because I would be like, oh, I don't want to bother them, da, da, da. Other people can show up. Like, you know, if I say I'm not well, you can be like, hey, can I do something to help you out? Because you're an awesome friend. And so I just want to remind other people in case they're like, oh, I don't like to tell other people that I'm not doing well, blah, blah, blah. I don't like it either. And I hate asking for help, but be nice to your friend and let them be nice to you.
I love this, wrapping it into a friendship theme. Very
This is not the question today.
This is a PBS Is this PBS is like the public broadcasting station and
Ah,
PBS After School Special by Anne Claire.
you're welcome.
I'm okay.
Do you have anything else to add on friendship?
I like the idea of being honest. Like there's no need to hide how you're feeling with friends. Like a true friend will meet you where you're at, right? And totally understand if you're not feeling well or if you need to take a break or rest. So that's today's life lesson, folks.
Stay tuned for a recovery.
Stay tuned after the break. This episode brought to you by the A Keys to Recovery workbook. I'm just kidding. But that would be what we would have an advertisement next, because that's what
we should. You know what? We're going to send an email to Carol and be like, do you want to sponsor our YouTube channel? We'll put a little ad every time.
This thing just goes across the screen.
Right. And we're going to be able to send her this snippet as an example of how professional the ad can be.
We use the most battered book.
Hey, it is a book that is being used. And that's literally our job. I mean, we use that all the time. So that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So we got to give the people what they want today, which is recovery content and answering their questions. And I know you're the keeper of the questions. So which question are we answering today? Anne Claire.
So one of the lovely humans, I think on YouTube, sent us this question and shared with us, I know so much and listen and read, etc., about recovery, but I still find it hard to take action. What am I missing?
Well, there are a few things you're missing, but I think this individual almost already knows what's missing, which is taking action and doing the things.
Yep. I feel like the answer is in the question. Taking action is missing. The doing is missing. And I know how annoying this answer sounds like, but it really is a question of doing at some point and trying and practicing. We're not in your shoes, we're not in your head, but we were one day in our own shoes and in our own head and had to face taking action when we were uncertain and when we weren't sure of outcomes and where we didn't feel fully ready, when it was still scary, and yet we had to take action before being fully ready, before having all the answers, before having no fear and all that. And it is through the action taking that we figured it out and that we got further. Mm-hmm. That's how I would sort of like briefly introduce and summarize my answer. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think, there are 5 stages of recovery, right? And I think the third one is preparation. This is all off my head. I might be wrong with numbers, but there's the preparation phase, which includes things like educating yourself, listening to podcasts, maybe setting up like a therapist or a dietitian or coach, like getting things aligned, making sure that you are prepared. And then the next stage is taking action. So it sounds like if you're doing that, you're not doing anything wrong. Like it's good to consume the content, read the books, listen to the podcasts, etc. But you can't let that be your little way of convincing yourself you're doing recovery, because you don't do recovery until you challenge the behaviors and challenge the food. So you need to start doing that. And if you're having trouble doing that, I highly recommend building up a team or even going to a higher level of care if you need it to get that action kind of sparked. And of course, when it comes down to taking action, there is nothing wrong with taking baby steps and exposing yourself to what's scary in controlled ways so that you can find evidence that it's possible for you to overcome your fears, right? So I love being a coach for this reason, because we're often kind of charged with the responsibility of supporting people as they take action and setting goals so that action becomes more possible, right? And that they can make progress that way. So yeah, that's really what I see it as, is one of the most common hangups of recovery is just feeling like you're in the preparation phase for so long, but you can't stay there and you can't convince yourself that you're really doing recovery until the action's coming into place.
I love that. And you're right, by the way, in terms of the stages of change. It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. So
yes,
you were correct with your numbering. This little geek has a weird
I knew I was right.
Library.
I knew I was right. Why do I do that to myself?
Right? But it is so true. And I also appreciate that you insisted on the fact that all the stages have value. Yeah. And we have to go through all of them anyway, right? So like meet yourself where you're at and don't minimize the importance of all the stuff you have already done, but make sure you're not falling into the trap or the illusion of reading, listening, etc. is the same as doing. It's not. At some point you have to do the stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to add a little side note here. When you're in, generally speaking, the action phase of recovery, that doesn't mean that you have to do all the goals all the time. Right. So just to be extra clear, some goals you act on, some goals you prepare. And that's what we do as well. So when you reach out to people and professionals on your team, they help you get extra ready, like extra prepared, extra willing. And then some things you start challenging in action and some things you continue preparing. It's like a ping pong game between those two stages, depending on what we're talking about. So please don't hear this as I have to be ready on every, like quote unquote, ready on everything and then do everything. Also not what we're saying.
Yes. Such a good point. You can kind of flow between a few of the stages throughout recovery. That's totally fine, because as we know, recovery looks different for everyone. And I want to make note, because we're talking about action today, the action phase is like extremely messy. Like we're going to set goals that are nice and like tied up in a bow. Like, oh, you should be like very clear about like what the goal is this week. But your outcome of those goals might be really messy and complicated and emotional and difficult. You might feel like you failed, although, it's really just an opportunity for more learning. And I've had clients stuck in the action phase of like taking action, not having it go their way, taking action, having setbacks, making progress, having setbacks, and you feel like you're not going anywhere for a while. And for a lot of folks, this action phase is messy. And then one day, like a year down the line or 6 months down the line, you kind of come up for air and you look back and you see the actual progress you've made. But while you're in the action phase, it might feel like you're not getting anywhere sometimes. I don't know if that's kind of how you see it too, but the action phase can feel a little chaotic at times.
And it really is. And that is why I will, on a regular basis, have a conversation on what goals actually are. And goals are process goals, not outcome goals. We're doing because the doing makes sense. We're doing because the doing is aligned with your values, with where you're at, and they're aligned with where you want to go. We're not doing it because we have the guarantee that things are going to happen exactly like this and in this way and are going to give you this specific outcome that you have imagined. That's not realistic. And so once we start appreciating the process for the process itself and trusting that that's going to get you to where you want to be, but you accept that uncertainty of how, when, and all the nitty gritty, then it's somewhat a little bit easier to accept that this is a bit messy. And messy is human at the end of the day. There is no such thing as the one path to full recovery because we're all different. So please know that if it feels a bit like wobbly, messy, all you're saying is you're human, having a human experience and doing recovery. That's not wrong. That's actually good because you're showing up for yourself. So as I say that, I think back to past me who would have rolled her eyes so bad and been like, yeah, but that's not me and I don't like it. So I just want to also show so much compassion to you humans listening to us. If that sounds like icky and uncomfortable, it is icky and uncomfortable. And yet we learn as we go. Don't let that be a barrier. If it feels uncomfortable, by the way, it's also really good news because change only happens outside of your comfort zone. So
I like that reminder, Anne Claire. Like discomfort is a sign you're doing the right thing in recovery completely. And that's always so helpful to remember. And I also want to add that when you're in this messy action taking phase, try not to think black and white about what you're doing, because I see this a lot too. Folks like have a positive week and they maybe achieve some goals they set and they're like, oh, I'm recovered now. It's like it goes from this extreme of like, I'm doing great. And then the next week they have a setback and then they're like, I'm failing. I want to quit. This isn't worth it. I hate this. Like, I'm this close to stopping. It's just like, I see that swing a lot in the action phase when there's like, they're not getting that A+ like grade that they expect themselves to get. And really in recovery, you want to be aiming for like average C- grades, like just like, like you do not want to, don't look at yourself as a failure if you get it. I know grades like stress people out. So maybe this isn't the best.
No, but honestly, if anything, this is like the hard bit of recovery. Everything's gray. Nothing's black and white. Everything's nuanced. Nothing is set. Everything's messy. And that's why it's going to be a great lesson for forever in your life, by the way. Oh my God, am I happy I've learned that lesson, because so much that's happening now in my life would not be manageable if I didn't find some level of comfort or didn't find ways to tolerate the messiness of life and stuff. But what I was trying to get at was that all of these, like, I want everything to be perfect and I want to always feel like I'm going forward, and I know some people are going to be annoyed at what I'm going to say. But this is where learning to be compassionate with yourself is going to be so key, because it's going to be messy. It's going to be nuanced. It's going to be gray. It's going to feel icky. You're going to sometimes nail it. And sometimes you're going to arguably fail miserably at a goal. And yet there will be lessons there that you will learn a lot faster and more like efficiently, effectively, impactfully, if you are more kind and patient and compassionate with yourself. And it's hard. I know it's hard. And I know self-compassion feels like floofy and icky as well. But this is where it is going to make the biggest difference in your recovery. So please give it an extra chance if you've closed the door on self-compassion.
Gosh. It's so funny because I'm like compassion's biggest fan. Like I love compassion. I think it was like the number one thing I took away out of recovery. And everyone who's in recovery still hates self-compassion. There's so many eye rolls, but I want to make this clear about compassion really fast. I know it's a side note, but compassion doesn't have to be fluffy rainbows and butterflies, babying you type of tone. Compassion can just be like you having your own back. Compassion might be like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you tried and it's okay. I think that's what makes people roll their eyes, right? And that they feel like babied by the idea of self-compassion. But in reality, self-compassion sounds like, hey, you'll get them next time. It's totally fine.
So here's the thing, and I'm really curious to bounce this off of you, Meg, because we've never had this discussion. I sometimes have this debate of, well, does compassion make more sense or does logic make more sense in recovery? And to an extent, I don't see how they're mutually exclusive, because I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, but I prefer like logic and using like the logical, ways of thinking. Like I have proof that this is like that, and I have proof of this, and this is true, and this is maybe BS, and and then that's more helpful than tuning into self-compassion. But honestly, self-compassion is logical to a big extent to me. Like often people are going to be like, yeah, but that's okay for others and not me. And that's the hard bit of self-compassion, because in self-compassion, you have mindfulness, common humanity, and kindness leading to more responsibility. And then we're often going to be stuck in the common humanity bit, right? Where it's like, yes, for others, but not for me. Do you ever have that conversation with people?
Every day.
And it's like, but in recovery, if you go into any group of recovery warriors, everyone's going to feel somewhat the same, right? People are going to bring up the same sort of thing. You're going to have proof that you love so much that other people are thinking the exact same thing as you, except they're not you. So the fact that you think that it's valid for everyone else, but you, is what everyone else thinks as well. So you have proof that that's not just you. So why, you know what I mean? Like the logic literally is used in self-compassion to show you that you also do get to choose with the, proof, if you want to call it like that, whether or not you agree to apply some kindness to yourself in order to get better results. Also, FYI, there's a bunch of research that exists on how self-compassion genuinely is helpful to get to results faster and more and in a better way.
It's a logical choice.
To me, it is a logical choice. If you have
evidence-based, practical choice for a person to implement self-compassion into.
I would go even further than that. It's not only evidence-based, research-based, but it's also based on your own lived experience. Because if you tell me that you feel like it's only for others, but not you, but then you are living the experience of other people telling you that it's the same for them, your lived experience is confirming the research and the logic.
Ooh, and they're running circles around these people today. Honestly, it's funny because like you just outlined something that I hadn't really thought about before, which is how self-compassion is a logical choice. I also think logic is a form of self-compassion because that's what I talk about when having your own back. Like when you use logic to defend your healthy self, you're having your own back. And I think that's a form of self-compassion because you're making sure that you stick up for the part of you that wants to recover. So they're true. Yeah. Like, so logic can be seen under the compassion umbrella, and compassion is also a logical choice. So they're basically totally connected.
So we might have gone on a bit of a tangent from the question we started with.
We might have to just turn this into another video because it's kind of cool.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I get it. Like it clicked. You explained it. At first, I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure where you were going, but it all makes sense to me now. It's
like, I got worried. I lost Aunt Claire for a second, and then I found her back, and I was less worried. It's like, did the cold completely destroy her brain, or is she still functioning?
What was our original question? Taking action. Yes. So as much as you all want to roll your eyes about the idea of self-compassion, it's imperative to utilize self-compassion throughout this process. And if you have trouble accessing that, think about logic as a form of self-compassion, or you can think of self-compassion as something logical to do.
Bring it up to your treatment team and then make those little steps like things that you can accomplish, right? And when we say take action, I just want to loop back to something, Meg, you said at the beginning. When we say take action, we don't mean do everything. It's not black, white. It's not 0, 100%. It's set that one first step that you'll take. Learn from it. Whether it's going well or not, there's something to be learned from that one step, because you're either learning, I can do this thing, I can change something, or you're learning, something got in the way. What went in the way? How can I work on that? Start setting those little achievable goals and start doing. It isn't the doing that you will get further in that recovery that you've been reading and learning and listening all the stuff about. Trust that part of you that's been taking your attention towards those things. Trust that part of you that has been making you read and listen and watch and is watching this right now, and try to show up in action terms for that part of you as well. That will start creating so much more change. And that is a non-negotiable part of recovery. You will have to do to get there.
Well said, Anne Claire. I think that is a great way to wrap up our episode for today. As always, please let us know what you think. I'm so curious to hear what you're thinking about the self-compassion bit. Let us know if you'd like us to go once into maybe how to set those small specific action steps and goals, because that could be an entire video on its own. And yeah, please comment below. If you share this episode on your social media, please don't hesitate to tag us and we will reshare. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Meg, for joining me today and having this conversation with me. You're very welcome. And thank you to everyone watching. We really are rooting for you guys in your recovery, and we're hopeful to hear of your progress. So let us know, and we'll see you all next week. Bye. Bye.